Welcome in. I am David Gow, the boss. Next to me, Carla Dawson, the gloss. You have returned from the wilds of California. Welcome home.
Thank you. It's good to be in Houston where we got some champs coming.
Well, there's so much going
Hopefully.
on in the sports calendar right now. It's a fun season here. This is probably the first show when we're not leading off with NFL activity, NFL games, NFL free agency. Think about it right now. The Astros, after a pretty good opening series, are hosting the Giants at home tonight. The Rockets, who are on fire right
Oh
now, and
my
the number
gosh,
two seed in the Western
unstoppable.
Conference, will be facing the Lakers in LA.
The number 2 seed in the Western Conference?
Beyond me. Never would have thought that.
Me neither.
Whatever happened to the playoffs, this has been a great season for the Rockets.
Yep.
And then, though, we're not talking about the Texans. We're not talking about the Rockets. We're not going to talk about the Astros this segment because the Cougars are in the Final Four. University of Houston, what a ride.
All chalk on the Riverwalk next weekend in San Antonio. All 4 number 1 seeds, being our University of Houston Cougars, will be facing the Duke Blue Devils, the blue bloods of all time. The young teams versus the older teams. So here we go.
Well, we are sitting with coaches who have never won a championship, all 4 NFL
All
coaches.
4. This will be their first, whoever comes out of this.
And
Incredible.
certainly Kelvin Sampson is deserving. He's had a great body of work through the course of his career.
36 years of coaching.
An amazing run.
Whew.
But here he sits. He has to face a really, really good Duke team. Duke never trails. I mean, they are so good. This is their 18th Final Four in school history. Now, none of that history really matters for any of these players who are all new to this, but this is an amazing Duke team with Cooper Flagg leading it and a lot of blue blood in that Duke team.
You look at the Elite Eight this past weekend. Number 1 Duke beat number 2 Alabama. It was a wire-to-wire win. They never trailed. U of H handily beat number 2 Tennessee, 69-50. Wire-to-wire win. They never trailed.
And that never even seemed in doubt. I mean, it was just Cougars all the way.
No, I think the closest the Vols got was 10 points late in the game, but in the second half, but it never meant anything. It was a wire-to-wire win. They held Tennessee, you ready for this? 15 points in the first half. It's the fewest points that have ever been allowed in the Elite Eight all time.
Yeah, suffocating defense from all players on the court. Really outstanding, great presence on the court.
And when Milos Uzan didn't have his best day, you had Cryer stepping up with a game-high 17 points.
Yep.
So, U of H, what's so special about this U of H team, they've been 2 times in Kelvin Sampson's 7-year history to the Final Four. And they own the longest streak of Sweet 16s with 6 straight years, all under Kelvin Sampson. But what they have this year that they haven't had the past times, and we'll see how this pans out. Number 1, they're suffocating defense. They are number 1 in Division I in opponent's point per game at 52.
See, I love that because in some of these big games,
What?
There's nerves, there's tension, and they might affect your shooting. But defense, you can do with hustle, and they bring that into the game. And even if they aren't shooting their best, they can keep it close.
Absolutely. So defense has been their calling card always during the entire Sampson era so far. But secondly, what this team brings is shooting. They have got shooters, not just Milos Uzan. They've got Cryer. They have shooting that they can get from anybody, which is incredible. And then the third thing that is, and hopefully will remain, is their health. Last year they lost Jamal Shed in the tournament.
Yep.
That was the end of them. So they've got it all. What we need to see in Houston on Saturday is the best version of U of H. If they're playing their best basketball, because they're not going to stop Cooper Flagg. No one can stop Cooper Flagg. But I believe if U of H brings their best version of themselves, they've got a best chance as anybody to get to the finals.
Okay, one of the things I've heard you say is you think these 4 teams remaining are somewhat interchangeable. What do you mean by that?
I think that they all have such a similar resume. When you look at their records and you look at the 2 of them, Florida and Auburn, are coming out of the SEC.
Yep.
The best basketball conference in the country this year. Used to be the Big Ten, no longer. So they have had tough competition all season long. Same U of H. Big 12, the best basketball conference for defense for sure, and one of the top. And they've done well. I mean, they have the best undefeated road record, everything. So, and then you've got Duke, who they are from the weakest conference in the ACC. However, all these teams, if you look at their records, I've got them here. Where are they? Where is the record? They're very similar. Duke 35-3, U of H 34-4, Auburn 32-5, Florida 34-3. They all have that special player. Duke with Cooper Flagg, U of H with Uzan, Auburn with Joe Nybrom, Florida with Will Clayton Jr. And incredible, I'm not even going to say role players. They just have incredible starting lineups. They're all experienced. Duke is the least battle tested, but there's not really a clear, to me, one over the other. They all bring such similar records and coaches. None of the coaches, as you mentioned, have won a Final Four.
They all play great defense.
Great defense, great rebounding, great toughness, and some great sharpshooting as well. Oh, wow.
When you look at all the players in this tournament, Cooper Flagg, of course, is likely to get the Player of the Year award.
Mhm.
So maybe he's the
Mhm.
best of all the players here in the Final Four. But who's number two to you? Is it Walter Clayton?
Yes, I would say so. I think what's neat about this is all these teams, these four are the best teams in college basketball. Do you see
Yeah,
anyone else that you'd rather see in
it's
this
not
top
a
four?
Cinderella year,
No.
obviously. I mean, when you get the number one seeds
No
in
madness
there.
in March.
And this is what's exciting. I mean, the odds are really tight right now. I mean, the differential, I think the Cougars are trailing by 4 in the look, they're 4 point differential for them is not much. I mean, that's a
That's right.
basket and a quarter, right? I mean, that's just nothing. And I think the other game, the spread is just 2 points favoring Florida. So it's a really great set of matchups. We're talking
Yeah.
about really tight competition.
It is really, this is what I'm saying. This is why it's so interchangeable. There's not one that sticks out above the other, which I think makes it really exciting, to be honest.
Does it bother you? You know, there's been a lot of narrative this week that there's not a Cinderella, that we love the Cinderella stories, the Jim Valvano stories, the team that comes from nowhere. Does that bother you?
No.
It
Bec-
doesn't bother me either. Getting
It
the
bothers
best
a lot of
teams
people,
there.
though. You're right.
I know. No, I've heard this over and over again. It's a recurring narrative. Oh my gosh, we don't have the Cinderella. Cinderella is such a part of March Madness. Madness by definition means a Cinderella crashed the party. It's crazy. It's mad. We don't have that kind of madness this year. It was actually sort of orderly. The good teams took care of business and they find themselves in San Antonio.
I think it makes for a really good Final Four and championship weekend because, the Cinderella story is fun and you get the butlers of the world, or I can't even think of all the ones with the cute little nun, the one from Chicago, Loyola, all these great stories that came. But you know what? They don't make it through. It's so fun in the beginning, but it can also lead to, which we've had in recent years, a very sleepy final.
Yeah, we don't want to blow
If
out
they
in the
get too
final
far.
game.
No, we don't. So I like this. You're seeing the best basketball in the country.
It's funny. You remembered the nun more than the school.
I
There was something
did.
about that nun.
Loyola of Chicago. That's what it was.
She was special.
Sister, I can't remember. She was so dang cute. She was like 100.
She was very, very old. Yes, and very cute, and a committed Catholic for Loyola. And
Yeah.
with her prayer beads, she took the team a long way. Wasn't that what I heard?
It's called a rosary.
A rosary. Okay, I got it from you.
Prayer beads. Same thing. I knew exactly what you were talking about. No, but I do think, yes, we missed the excitement of Cinderellas. There are no Cinderellas. There's no madness in this March. You are seeing really good, pure basketball, and it's chalk talk. That's what you're seeing at this point.
Will the Cougars need to do something different to defend against Cooper Flagg, or do they just play him straight up just like they have been?
They just need to be the best version of themselves all over the ball, because at all facets that they are good at. That's the only chance, because I don't think there's any scheme that can shut down Cooper Flagg. He's that special, but he can't do everything himself. He can't. So
And what about the 4 coaches? If you had to line them all up,
gosh.
they're all pretty exceptional in their own ways. Different personalities too. But when you look at them, if you had to pick one guy who delivered the most value, gave his team an edge, which coach stands apart to you?
Well, I'm biased because we're here in Houston,
Yes.
but I have to say Kelvin Sampson,
Stick with your
because
bias. He's got him to the Sweet 16 6 years in a row.
yes, and that's a streak. That's a historic streak. It's incredible. And he started it before he even dealt with X's and O's on a basketball court. It all started with culture, which was effort and timeliness and effort. And That's what it was kind of like when we saw Josh Jacobs talking about his time at Alabama, when we went to the NFL draft several years ago. It was before they even took the practice field. Nick Saban had them doing financial management, social media, how you talk to the press, that you all these things that can be overlooked for the game, but these are important factors, and that's what Kelvin Sampson does. That's different with U of H. When he first got the job, he and his wife had the team over for like fresh baked cookies and dinner to get the culture going. He's a culture guy first, and I love it.
Well, you heard it from Carla, and the Cougars will be in the Final Four. It's going to be an exceptional time. Coming up next, we're going to talk to college basketball analyst and color commentator for CBS Sports, ESPN, and the ACC Network. It's Dan Bonner, and we're going to ask him if he thinks the Cougars can land the championship this year. Dan Bonner up next year on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
You're listening to The Boss
and The Gloss
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Presented by Tony's. Tony's Restaurant, the city's top fine dining experience.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's David Gow
and Carla Dawson.
Welcome back, and we are joined now by Dan Bonner. He's a college basketball analyst and color commentator for CBS Sports, ESPN, and the ACC Network. Dan, welcome to the show. You're on with David and Carla.
Well, David, I appreciate being on the show. I hope you and Carla are doing well tonight.
Well, we're glad you still have a voice after all you've been doing.
Well, I work with two other guys, so my voice gets a rest.
Okay. That's a deal.
Well, Dan, thanks for joining us. We are delighted we're at the Final Four. Everyone's going to San Antonio. Of course, we're sitting here in Houston, delighted about the Cougars. When you look at the four teams remaining, do you like this foursome? I mean, the idea that all these number one seeds have made it. We've got really probably the collection of the best teams. Does this satisfy you as a fan or somebody calling the games?
Oh, absolutely it does. You know, we have a little bit of discussion every year about how everybody likes to see the upsets in the first couple rounds, but then when you get right down to the end, they want to see the best teams. And we'll see if that's true this year, because we didn't have very many upsets, but there's no question that we have the four best teams in the Final Four. And I think, you know, when you have a tournament like this, every once in a while, you know, the last time was 2008? So every once in a while, you like to have the four best teams.
No, I love that, Dan. And, you know, historically, I saw that 4 of the top 10 KenPom rated teams are playing in this year's Final Four in San Antonio. So I'd love to know from you, like, how much significance do you give that KenPom for the outcome? And in your opinion, are we legitimately getting the 4 best teams in college basketball?
Well, I will tell you that I'm a very old school guy. And if I take too long and looking at the KenPom stuff, I feel like my head is going to explode. I think that what I want to look at is whether these teams win. And like Houston, for example, they have won 17 games in a row, and they have won 30 of their last 31 games.
Gosh.
Duke has won 15 games in a row and has won 31 of their last 32 games. So with all due respect to Mr. Pomeroy, I think that I would prefer numbers like that.
I like that too. I'm not going to complain with you about that. But this year you really can't call the tournament March Madness because there really hasn't been that much madness. When I saw the Elite 8 seeding of 1-1-1-1, 2-2-2, and 3, I was like, oh my gosh. And then it's all chalk on the Riverwalk for the Final Four. From a fan viewer standpoint, there's been a lot of, just like you talked about, I want to see the Cinderella. Don't you think this is going to end up being a fantastic weekend when it's all said and done?
I do. I totally agree with that. All this Cinderella business, and I think it's fun, and I think it's one of the things that makes our tournament special. But all this Cinderella business basically comes from people who maybe are only time viewers during the NCAA tournament, or only part-time viewers that are casual viewers. But I think the people that follow college basketball all year long, they want to see the big boys in that Elite 8 and in the Final Four. And that's what we've had this year.
Yeah, because the last time this happened was 2008. So it's not like this happens all the time. This is pretty special.
Oh, I think so. And people are saying, wow, with the way the world exists now, with the transfer portal and the players being paid, maybe this is a harbinger of things to come. But I would say let's wait and see. We can't make all our decisions based on one tournament. And I think it's been a great tournament. There have been close games, only one buzzer beater, but there's been close games, teams making great comebacks. I think this is the kind of basketball that people want to see in the championship tournament.
We are talking to Dan Bonner, college basketball analyst and color commentator. Okay, we're sitting here in Houston, Texas. We got a lot of Cougars fans listening. What needs to take place this weekend for the Cougars to be the champion?
Well, first of all, the Cougars are really good defensively, obviously, and they can also put points on the board. But I think all 4 of these teams are very, very close together. So this is one of those, mini tournaments, a 4-team tournament, that whoever wins, I think, is going to have to win at the margins. And by that, I mean, can you force and convert extra possessions? Houston, in the 2 games in the Elite 8, had a total of 30 offensive rebounds and scored 39 second chance points. Those are the kind, that's what I mean on the margins. There were extra possessions. Can you get extra possessions? Can you convert the extra possessions? Obviously, a bad shooting night, you're out. But let's assume that everybody shoots about the way they're supposed to. Then you have to be one on the margin. Can you make that front end of the 1-on-1 down the stretch? Can you get the steal and convert it into a basket? So I think these are going to be great games, and I think they have to be one on the margins. And I think Houston has sort of done that all year.
Okay, I love hearing that, Dan, because all day today, I haven't heard any talking heads picking Houston to cut down the nets. And honestly, I'm fine with that. Underdog status, that works for me. And I heard Kelvin Sampson say today, you don't shut down Cooper Flagg. You have to be the best version of yourself to win. Is there any advantage to the fact that really Houston isn't being talked about as hoisting and cutting down the nets at the end?
I don't think so.
Okay.
If there's an advantage, it would be an advantage for Houston, because everybody in every sport likes to play, we're being disrespected card. Mm-hmm. And so everybody likes to play that. And the only team in this Final Four, because people aren't really talking about them, that has a chance to play that card in their own minds are the Cougars. So if they can use that to their advantage, good for them. I will tell you that when people have asked me about it, I haven't exactly picked Houston, but I keep saying, don't forget Houston. Houston is really good. Houston can win this tournament. That's what I felt before the tournament. That's what I felt during the tournament, and that's how I feel now. Now, will they? I don't know, but they're certainly just as capable of any of the other three teams.
We are talking to Dan Bonner, the college basketball analyst and color commentator. Okay, we are spoiled here in Houston with some great guard play. But for those who don't know, talk about Walter Clayton Jr., who you've seen, and he's probably the best guard. He's played the best guard play throughout the entire tournament. Tell us what you've seen from him.
Well, the main thing about Walter Clayton Jr. is that he is a guy who makes big shots. If Florida is in a tight game, you know that he is going to produce for you. And as a team, that has to give you an incredible amount of confidence. I'll tell you, the thing that impressed me the most about Walter Clayton Jr., I watched him against Maryland, and I thought he was a little bit disinterested on defense. And he only scored 13 points, but they had great play from other people, and it wasn't a close game. And then when they went to play Texas Tech and they needed him to guard somebody, he did. He suddenly wasn't disinterested on defense. I think he had 3 blocked shots in that game. But you get right down to the end and you need somebody to make a big shot. It's Walter Clayton Jr. And I'll tell you what, if I'm playing against Florida, I would prefer to be up 10 with 50 seconds to go rather than have it be a 3-point game.
Fair. He really is something special. Dan, looking at Auburn, obviously Joe Nybrome would be in consideration for a player of the year. He had what seemed to be even more than one injury yesterday with that fall late in the game, the right elbow, and then hyperextending the knee. Do any of these injuries for Brome, and he did come back and hit a 3 right away, but that right arm was hanging down. He didn't look himself. Does this give you any cause to pause for Auburn?
Absolutely. And I mean,
it's not being talked about.
They basically have a week off before they have to play. But if Janai Broome is not at 100%, that might not impact Auburn if they're playing Vanderbilt, or if they're in the middle of the season and it's, if they lose the game, okay, they can still win the next game. But if you're in a situation like this against 3 of the other best teams in the country and your best player is not at 100%, that really puts Auburn at a disadvantage. Now, can they win the games? Well, sure they can. Other guys can step up. But when you're in a situation like this, you want to have your best guys at 100%. And if Broome is not 100%, that really affects Auburn.
It is an interesting time here because we've got all the head coaches never having won a championship, 4 here. When you look at these 4 coaches, all of them elite, all of them very different. Is there one that stands out to you as the one who can make the biggest mark in the Final Four this weekend?
Well, again, that's a very good question. Obviously, if you win a national championship, then that makes a mark, and it would make a mark for any of the coaches. John Chaney was a great coach, and he never won a national championship. Lefty Driesell was a great coach, and he never won a national championship. So the fact that you don't win a national championship doesn't diminish you as a coach, but certainly a national championship enhances your reputation. And, Kelvin Sampson's been around a long time. He's had good teams, so certainly I'm sure that he would love to win the national championship. The guy that I think about is John Shire, because he is in a tremendous shadow.
Yes.
Mike Krzyzewski still has an office in the building. And so I think that in terms of maybe establishing yourself as your own man, that it would be most significant for John Shire to win the national championship. But it's all, that's all nothing. It'd be significant for any of these guys to win.
Sure. Let me ask you, Dan, you've got a 3-headed monster there with Kevin Harlan, Stan Van Gundy, and Dan Bonner all there together. You've got great rapport, and it's not always easy to do with 3 people. And then Stan Van Gundy seems to have 5 million stories, just an infinite number of stories that he can tell. How much fun are you guys having together?
Well, we have a tremendous amount of fun. And the thing you have to understand about our group is Kevin Harlan he's at the top of the game.
Yep.
Kevin and I've been very fortunate. I've worked games with Kevin since 2004. That's when we first met. So, and we've worked a lot of games together. And it's, I know what he's going to do. He knows what I'm going to do. We know how each other prepares. And so we blend very well together. He loves to laugh, and I love to laugh. And so that's one of the reasons we get along so well. And then you drop Stan into that mix. And Stan is a guy who is very excited to be there. He is not one of those guys who thinks, I don't really want to be doing college basketball. But you're right. He has fun stories. He's a fun guy. We work real well together. I think Kevin orchestrates that whole thing very, very well. It is a great experience for me. And I hope the other guys are having as much fun as I am.
Dan, you played at UVA and coached the women at UVA. How surprised were you by Tony Bennett's retirement?
Well, Carla, we have to use our verbs correctly. I was on the team at Virginia. You can't really say that I was much of a player. And I did coach the women's team for 2 years at Virginia, but the person, that was so long ago. I could tell you, I could spend an hour with you telling stories about how different it was 50 years ago than it is now. And the person who made coaching the women's team at Virginia sound like it's a great thing was Debbie Ryan. But it's just, I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that question. I just love what I do.
Oh, that's great. Well, you're very good at it, and we're lucky to have you, Dan. Thank you for being on with us.
Well, thank you very
Dan
much.
Bonner. Dan, thanks so much for being with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and I hope you really enjoy the Final Four.
Go Cougs.
All right, when we come back, we're going to shift gears. We're going to look at the NFL, and we're going to ask, are the Texans done with their free agent shopping, or is there another shoe to drop? That up next here when we return here on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
You're listening to The Boss
And the Gloss.
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Presented by Tony's. Tony's Restaurant, the city's top fine dining experience.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's David Gow.
And Carla Dawson.
Welcome back, and we've had some fun talking Cougar basketball. We're going to shift gears here and talk about NFL free agency. The Texans, of course, signed Cam Robinson. That was a big signing. They had to have him with the trade of Laramie Tunsil. And Robinson is probably an average, maybe slightly above average
Top
offensive
third.
tackle.
Top third in the league, I would say.
Top third, you think?
Mhm.
So they'll slide him in over at the left tackle spot to replace Tunsil. But the question is, are they done? And there aren't a whole lot of free agents out there whose names will turn your head anymore. But there are a few. And the position I keep thinking about is wide receiver. Are they satisfied with where they are? Nico Collins, the clear number one. We all know about the injuries in the number two wide receiver spot. Christian Kirk, now a Texan.
That we got from Jacksonville.
Yeah, he's presumably the number two receiver on this roster right now. But there are other names out there. Would an Amari Cooper turn your head? Would you be interested in him, or a Tyler Lockett? Do you think they're done, or are they going to go out and find somebody else?
I think, this is a heavy wide receiver draft. So I would not be surprised. We've got a lot of draft picks if they do something there. I would love to have an Amari Cooper. It's just going to depend on his price tag because, as you know, they've just paid Derek Stingley a nice little situation. They're going to have to be ready to pay CJ, and they're going to have to be, they're probably going to have to bring in some O-line help next free agency. I mean, I don't know that they can count on getting all that in the draft. So I think they might look for. I think they're thinking of Christian Kirk as their number two. Braxton Berrios would be more of a slot, and they're not paying him much, so it's fine. 1 year, $2 million, and he could be a threat, a slot, emerge as a threat in the slot alongside of Christian Kirk. But yeah, I think they could bring in a legit number two for the right price. I'm sad that we missed out on Stephon Diggs because he is ahead of his rehab with the ACL. He's going to New England. That's a bummer because I really love not only him on the field, but his veteran presence and his relationship with CJ. So I think there is room. And, I would love Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper's interesting.
And Tyler
because,
Lockett.
of course, he came out of Alabama with such pedigree. He went to the Raiders. He went to the Cowboys. They traded him to the Browns. And he did not perform well at the Browns or didn't get a lot of good stats. But
then he went to the Bills. He's a Buffalo now.
The Browns offense did not play well. And
right.
With Deshaun Watson not performing at a high level, it was very hard for any receiver to stand out. And then he went to the Bills. And there I thought was a wonderful matchup because Stephon Diggs had left the Bills. Cooper was coming in. He's a veteran wide receiver who historically everyone has always said that Cooper runs very pristine, really, really high quality routes. Mm-hmm. Great route runner.
A smart guy.
And obviously they do have a good quarterback there as opposed to at the Browns. Josh Allen there throwing the ball. Yet maybe it was because Cooper came in the middle of the year. He really didn't have much of a presence in that Bills
He never got a rhythm or a role. He really didn't stick in that offense. And I think you're right. I think it was because he came at the trade deadline and things were already rolling for Buffalo. And which I think is a mistake because I think he's so talented still.
He's only 30 years old, but I have been reading some reports that he's lost his fastball, that he doesn't have the speed that he used to have. But boy, there are a lot of receivers at 30 years old who can still run well.
Sure.
He may not have, I don't even really ever think he ever had Tyreek Hill type speed. I mean, exceptional speed. He wasn't a burner who was stretching the field all the time. It was more that he was just a wonderfully precise route runner with great, great hands. You could count on him to be in the spot and to reel in the pass. And that kind of profile makes me think, that fits neatly as a number two to Nico Collins.
It would be fantastic. I would be so excited. He would be my number one free agent pickup would be Amari Cooper for sure.
Well, maybe the Texans have heard us tonight. Maybe they're going to go get Mario Cooper. I mean, Amaro.
Who's now Italian? Mario.
Yeah, Mario Cooper. Well, I've converted him to Italian. Why not?
Why not? Let's do it.
I mean, Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett, those are the other wide receivers. But
Keenan Allen has a severe injury history. Yeah. Or Amari Cooper has really, for his length of his career, his injury history is really favorable. And we have enough of an injury history problem here in Houston with Tank Dell, and Nico's spent time too. So I love Keenan Allen. He is super talented when he's on the field, but when is a big question mark.
Okay, we were talking about Deshaun Watson, his time at the Browns, how that has not gone well. Lest there be any doubt, the Browns owner came out yesterday and said...
with a news flash.
Yeah, he said, we blew it with Deshaun. That was a big mistake. He sort of stated the obvious, but you rarely hear that kind of blunt transparency from an owner about one of his players.
And he took it on. I mean, he said, ultimately, this comes down to me and, the Haslam family, me and, the brother. Deshaun's played 19 games in 3 years. And let's be fair, even not let's say you can't predict that there's going to be Achilles and knee issues and all the things that Deshaun has had. But what you did know was that you were taking a quarterback that was embattled in a very serious legal situation with massage therapists, and that he was going to be, you knew he was going to be sitting out for 11 games. I guess it got knocked down to 9 maybe, but nonetheless was missing over half of the season. And you gave him a historically guaranteed contract that was off the charts.
Yeah, the amount of guaranteed money was an historic record, to be sure. The one thing I want to say in the defense of the Browns, because this article made the point that I found sort of interesting, is there were about a third of the teams in the NFL that wanted Deshaun Watson.
Sure.
Even though he had all these looming troubles, even though he had the suspension coming, people were still lining up to get Deshaun Watson. And of course, Deshaun didn't want to play in Cleveland. At least that was not his first choice. There was all this conversation about going to the Miami Dolphins, where I think Deshaun would have been happy to go to Miami. Maybe Tua would have come in a trade back to the Texans.
Yeah.
Oh, the rumors were flying all that time, but many, many teams were lined up to get Deshaun. But the difference maker, and the reason why Deshaun finally signed with the Browns,
was the fat contract and the guaranteed money.
The money. I mean, it's always about the money. And Deshaun took the money. He went with the biggest amount of guaranteed money he could get. And in defense of the Browns owner, what does the fan want from the owner? Put up the dough.
Totally agree.
Get us the players. Give us a winning team. If the best quarterback is out there and you can get him, and it's a matter of money, we want you as the owner to put up that money. And he did it.
Absolutely.
But boy, he's got to regret it now.
Well, and I think to your point, David, you're right. Because when you think of when we last saw Deshaun on the field in Houston, he was a highlight reel.
Yep.
I mean, almost beat Kansas City himself because no one else had anything with it. But nonetheless, he was fantastic. But then you remember he sat. They didn't trade him. So he sat for a whole season and then he was suspended. So it had been such a long time. And I think, as we've talked about before with several different quarterbacks, it's such a nuanced position as far as rhythm and timing. And he was really out of the mix. And I understand him not wanting to play for a Houston team that traded away everybody that was anything, and having Bill O'Brien at the helm, and then David Culley and all this nutty business that was going on here.
It was a crazy time.
It was,
with the Texans,
and I can't blame him. But you're right with the Browns. If they were drafting on the potential of that version of Deshaun Watson coming forward, and it has not meant to be, but it wasn't complete. The fact they wanted him wasn't stupid. The contract was stupid, guaranteeing that much money. Now they're stuck.
The intriguing thing now is Deshaun is their quarterback, and he's coming to the team with all that guaranteed money. Cutting him would be a prohibitive cost
against the cap. It would be awful.
And amazing. I've just never really seen a scenario where the quarterback of your team has been downgraded by the owner so visibly, so loudly, and so definitively. I mean, he said, wow, that was a huge mistake for our franchise. And now Deshaun has to come and play for the franchise. What an awkward thing when Deshaun walks into that locker room.
Yeah, no, that's not going to be a confidence builder. just saying, but this is kind of Brownsy. This is kind of what they do.
But now we sit here. Browns have the number 2 overall pick. Cam Ward's almost certainly going to go number 1 overall to the Titans. Browns could take Shedeur Sanders, the second best quarterback in this draft. Would you do it? Even when you've got all that money committed to Deshaun Watson, would you take Sanders number 2?
I would take the best available player at number 2.
By anyone's account, though, that's not Sanders.
No,
that's either
not.
Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, one of those two guys by nearly everyone's estimation.
Because honestly, the Browns are running out of chits. They have to get the quarterback situation right, as does Tennessee.
But saying that, doesn't that mean you take Sanders?
No, it doesn't. Because I don't think, I love him. And you know how I feel about Deion. I'm a big fan.
Sanders has
and I want him to drop number 6 to my Raiders.
Yes.
Because I think they've got enough in place, and they can make this happen. I think the Browns have a great defense. They do. But I think it's too risky for them. They don't have enough in place, and they have just been snake bit. They can't afford. It's like the Giants. You can't afford to keep whiffing. And I think Sanders is not proven enough. for what they need in Cleveland.
You know, a couple weeks ago, we were talking to Lance Zierlein, of course, NFL draft expert. He evaluates all these players.
Amazing. He knows it all.
And it was great to hear his insights on the two quarterbacks. He did note Ward will likely go first, and then Sanders, it's a big mystery. If he noted, well, Sanders, if he doesn't go to the Raiders, could fall a bit here in the first round. But one of the things he said that I was surprised to hear him say was that there are some teams like the Giants whom he doesn't think can take Shadir Sanders because Dion will go on ESPN radio and criticize the way the head coach is using his son. You remember Lance was concerned that some teams and some coaches wouldn't be able to take the heat of having Deion Sanders be the father of your quarterback. And when he was saying that, it almost struck me like this is the Ball family in basketball. Do you remember the Ball family? The dad was a big
yeah, I
factor.
remember.
And
But it's not.
I don't think so.
No,
But
yeah, I don't either.
there was little drops of that as he was talking about some teams really can't take him because of what Dion might say.
Well, that's weakness on the teams. I'm sorry. If you can't, this is the National Football League. This isn't sorority rush. If you want someone, get it. And if the parent's going to talk, so be it. I mean, but I look at the Giants organization and I have to laugh because John Mara, the owner, he said that player survey that came out, New York Giants were the only team to get an F by players, executives, coaches around the league. And he says, I don't agree with that. I don't think this is a fair survey. So this is the team that is saying, I can't handle Deion Sanders talking about me. Well, yeah, because you're ignoring other truths surveying almost 1,600 people, and you're saying, nope, survey's flawed. No, you're flawed, Giants. Sorry.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to look at those Giants. They've signed two quarterbacks.
Oh, boy,
this
here we go.
offseason, and we're going to say, have they satisfied the position? Do they need to take Sanders at all? Maybe they've slayed the beast here.
This is going to be fun.
All right, that up next year on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
You're listening to The Boss
And the Gloss.
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Presented by Tony's. Tony's Restaurant, the city's top fine dining experience.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's David Gow.
And Carla Dawson.
Welcome back. And we were talking Giants football. They have the number 3 overall pick in the draft. They may be in play to draft Shedeur Sanders. However, they have signed 2 quarterbacks. So surely
Do tell.
they have slayed the beast. They've signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Jameis, I'm putting all my fingers in my mouth, Winston. They've got
Crab
2
fingers
quarterbacks.
Winston.
Yes, 2 of them. So they don't need a quarterback, right?
Right. Exactly. They are set.
You know what? It strikes me. It's that old expression, 2
Yikes.
wrongs don't make a right. 2 bad quarterbacks don't make a good quarterback, right? I mean, these guys, Wilson and Winston, better days behind them. Winston never really had that many great days behind him. But those 2 guys signed to deals, veterans, and to get both of them surprised me. I could see betting on one as a bridge to the next quarterback you might take, which might have been Sanders. But now with 2, would they really go and get a 3rd quarterback with the number 3 overall pick?
I don't think they are going to, even though that is the Giants' biggest need. There's no doubt about
Yep.
it. I mean, it was very curious that, just like you mentioned, they signed Russell Wilson to a 1-year, $10.5 million deal, fairly inexpensive for a 36-year-old, 10-time Pro Bowler who, just came reclaimed from Pittsburgh. But his potential is $21 million with incentives and things. But they signed him 1 week after signing Jameis Winston from Cleveland on a 2-year, $8 million deal. Now, Jameis Winston, here's the good news. He's led the league before in interceptions.
And interceptions. Okay.
And he is very interception prone. So this is so curious. But this is very Giantsy to me. To me could be a giant mistake. But what this tells me, they have done it. They signed Jameis Winston. A week later, signed Russell Wilson. Remember that the Giants finished the season with a 3-14 record, the same as Cleveland and Tennessee. And what this move tells me with Wilson and Winston is that it eliminates Shedeur Sanders, that they're not comfortable taking him with the number 3 pick. And honestly, I think that's fine for them because they don't have enough around him to make Shedeur successful, nor a veteran to help him out. What this tells me about the Giants regime, which I have pretty much zero faith in, they're in a I want to win now situation, and they're hoping Winston or Wilson will do the thing. That they have more faith in Russell Wilson than they do in Shedeur Sanders. And Russell Wilson is a proven product. However, he is clearly on the sunset of his career. And I wouldn't say that he is a culture builder by any means. I think he's learned a lot from leaving Seattle, going to Denver, blowing that place up badly. He's learned a lot and seemed fine in Pittsburgh, but I don't think this is a culture builder. And I think they're going to use Russell Wilson as a fallback plan if they have a QB situation in the draft that doesn't work out, like let's say it's Jackson Dart or whatever they're going to do. But to me, this is General Manager Joe Schoen's displaying QB desperation 101. You and I sat in that draft room when they took in Nashville Daniel Jones, Duke quarterback at number 6 overall. Not only that, but 2 years in, when he has one decent season after all the laughable circus highlights, they double down and give him a big fat contract. This is the same general manager who let Saquon Barkley walk. Just don't go to the Eagles. Okay, I'll go to the Eagles. I'll be the rushing leader, a Super Bowl champ, and the MVP of the Super Bowl. So take that, Giants. I don't trust this organization for anything. What do you think they're going to do at number 3?
I really think they should take Sanders. Some of those contracts, well, Wilson and Winston's contract, they can cut them without too much loss.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of guaranteed money there. I would bring all 3 of them in, and Sanders, find a bridge quarterback. It's probably Russell Wilson. I'd probably end up cutting Jameis Winston and out of Wilson as the mentor and groom Sanders for the future. But I don't know that they'll go that route. And of course, Sanders may well be taken by the Browns. He may not even be available at number 3, but I guess what they're doing is they're preparing for that possibility that they cannot get Sanders at 3, and they've gone with Winston and Wilson. Let me ask you a different player. Stephon Diggs, of course,
Oh, sad.
a guy we loved having on the Texans.
Yep.
All too brief.
Yep.
He was injured, tore his ACL. He has signed with the Patriots. He's 31 years old. He's coming off an ACL, and yet he got a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, he did.
A very nice deal with the Patriots. We can all say, why didn't the Texans sign him? Why did they need a number 2 wide receiver of his caliber of play? Why did they bring him back? Well, look at him. He got a lot of money from the Patriots,
Yeah, he
probably
did.
more than the Texans really feel they can afford when they think about the holistic team building they can do in their roster. But he got $16 million guaranteed. A lot of good money coming there for Stephon Diggs, and a guy who's deserving.
Yeah, I agree. I'm happy for him. I'm sad that we couldn't make it work in Houston, but you nailed it, David. I think after paying Derek Stingley, they're going to have to pay CJ. They couldn't afford Diggs. I mean, I think that's the bottom line, and that was too bad. And good for him that he's able to go out in the market and still get that kind of money. And I think he's ahead of schedule with his ACL rehab, and he's got a lot left in the tank. I love Stephon Diggs, not only as a great player, but he was an incredible teammate here in Houston.
Okay, another wide receiver who is apparently available, Brandon Ayuk. He is with the 49ers. They have to pay him a $22 million bonus if he's on their roster by tomorrow. So effectively, the trade deadline is this evening. And once the 49ers pay that bonus, well, then no one's going to pick him up. He's going to stay with the 49ers. They would have spent all that money to have him on the roster. He will assuredly stay. Do you see there's any scenario where he gets traded this evening? And if you were sitting in the seat of the Texans, would you give up a late round pick and take on Brandon Ayuk?
No. Because, he's had one breakout season in San Francisco, an amazing season. I mean, he was a big part of that team, but he tore not only his ACL, but his MCL.
Yep.
That's a hard injury to come back from. And he did it in week 7.
Yep.
So, I mean, I guess he would be able to start. I'd have to do the timeline. I don't know, but I think he's too expensive. And, he did cause a little bit of drama holding out for this big fat contract that he got, which was a 4-year, $120 million contract extension. And then went on. I mean, obviously he can't help the injury that he had, but no, I don't think we need to go there. I just don't think we do need to do that in Houston.
It is
It's
interesting.
too expensive.
He did hold out. He got a 4-year, $120 million contract extension last August, and then he got injured in week 7. So bad luck there for the 49ers, locking up somebody they valued, but then he couldn't really perform. Now they're trying to get rid of him. They don't want to pay this big roster bonus.
But even before he got injured in those 7 weeks, he had 25 catches for 375 yards, 0 touchdowns.
Yep.
Now, it was a down year for San Francisco,
Yes, it was.
all across the board.
Well, it all starts with McCaffrey. McCaffrey wasn't able to play, and
100%.
that disrupts the entire offense.
Absolutely. Do you know what was interesting, David? I heard a podcast with Brock Purdy this week, who is in contract extension negotiations with the 49ers. And they asked about the down season that San Francisco had. And I'm going to tell you what he said, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Well, that season when we went to the Super Bowl, that was exhausting. Like, we were all really tired. Like, we were just coming off, it's a long season. Then you have about 5 weeks off, and then, OTAs start, and then here we go again. We were just tired. Your thoughts?
That's exactly what you strive to do, though, is to get to the point where you can be that tired. I mean, getting to the Super Bowl is the grand prize. I don't know that I'd want to hear those words out of my franchise quarterback.
That you're about to pay a big fat contract to? The Chiefs don't say I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
They go all the
they're
time.
In the Super Bowl every single year.
Yeah.
This is their norm.
Patriots didn't say we're tired. I don't know. I thought that was not a good look.
I mean, I think the 49ers window is closing rapidly before us. Nobody really wants to say it out loud, but Ayuk, we just talked about. But then, of course,
they lost Deebo Samuel.
Deebo Samuel has now been traded. And then they've also gotten rid of Dre Greenlaw.
Javarius Ward. Yep.
Yeah, they've lost a lot of good talent. It's seemingly they've been able to accumulate all that talent, pay all that talent when they had a quarterback, Brock Purdy, who was basically paying for nothing. But now they're going to have to pay him a big time contract. It always seems the next quarterback up gets the highest deal.
It keeps resetting the market.
And he's the next one up. And if he does come in at that high level, that squeezes out some of these other guys. 49ers already doing that by purging their roster.
What would you do if you're John Lynch? What do you do with Brock Purdy at this point?
He is in one of the really tough spots.
Yeah.
Because he's got an above average quarterback, not an elite quarterback, who's come up for free agency. And of course, the demand always is you've got to pay your guy top of the market, but he's not elite. This is where I think the Cowboys were with Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
And everybody said,
100%.
pay the man, pay the man, pay the man. Well, fine, you pay the man. You pay them highest price because that's what always happens with the market. But he's got to be elite. And Brock Purdy, I don't think is that elite. I didn't think Dak Prescott was that elite. They're very good, and they can play well with a lot of good players around them. But I don't think Brock Purdy is anybody. Well, he's somebody you can win with, but not win because of his play.
Well
And
said.
that's the issue with Brock right now. And 49ers are in a tough spot because they feel an obligation to pay him big money. And I just don't know that you want to pay that kind of money to somebody who's merely above average.
And tired.
And apparently tired
Apparently very tired.
from making the Super Bowl. All right, when we come back, we're going to get a chance to visit with Will Kunkel. He is, of course, the sports director of Fox 26. We're going to ask him about the Cougars and the Astros.
And the Rockets. We got it all.
The Rockets have a big game against the Lakers. It'll be Will Kunkel up next here on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5. Welcome back. You are listening to The Boss and the Gloss, and joining us now is Will Kunkel. He is, of course, the sports director on Fox 26 here in Houston. Will, welcome onto the show. You're on with David and Carla.
Hey, guys. How are you guys doing?
Well, we are doing great, and we've been basking in the great run the Cougars are having, making it to the Final Four, heading to San Antonio. I know that you know Kelvin Sampson well. What is your take on Kelvin and the job he's done this year and getting the Cougars this deep into the playoffs?
It's impressive, but it's not a job that started this year. It's a job that started 9 years ago, honestly. He's built a program. He's built a culture there in that building. And it's built on top of itself year after year. And they are a really good team, but within a culture and within a program. And it's really coming to fruition today. And In an interview I had with them on Kicking It with Kunkel, which you all can find on YouTube.
Oh, I watched it, Will. It was amazing. I loved it.
Good. I appreciate that. He said we're all a sprained ankle away from mediocrity, and in last year we said they were a sprained ankle away from the Final Four.
Yep.
If Jamal Shed didn't sprain his ankle in that Duke game, they win, and then they likely go on to beat NC State, go on the Final Four, and then who knows what happens. But that's just kind of how this tournament goes. And so far, fingers crossed, knock on wood, do whatever. So far, so good and healthy.
Well, Will, you bring up such a good point, because that's what Rocket fans are saying with Chris Paul's hamstring. They were a hamstring away when the Warriors took them in the Western Conference Finals. But this is basketball and this is sport. What I think is so cool that you're mentioning with Kelvin Sampson, it's been a 9-year project. And I love that he prioritizes culture before coaching effort and attitude before he even gets to the X's and O's of basketball. And, like Milos Uzan, for example, Kelvin Sampson says he came in with talent, but he didn't know how to work hard. And now look what he has unleashed with that guy. It seems like the result for Sampson is not only in the chalk that we're seeing this weekend, but also in his incredible retention rate. They're so loyal to Kelvin and they're so loyal to the Cougs. And they're going to go up against a very young Duke team that has a lot of one and dones. The Cougs are underdogs for the first time in this tournament. What say you about this?
About the game itself?
Yeah. About the youngsters versus the basically the old stalwarts that stick with Kelvin Sampson.
Yeah, they're young, but Cooper Flagg's the best player in America,
gosh.
and it's really not even close. They're a really good basketball team. They're favored for a reason. Now, Houston's defense is the best in America. Tennessee's was a top 10 defense. They were number 8 in America, and we saw there's a huge gap between 1 and 8. So there's going to be an adjustment period for Duke on offense, but their defense is quite good as well, and it's long, and it's much longer than what Tennessee is. Probably a little bit more physical as well. So this is going to be a tough matchup, and there's a reason that the Cougs are underdogs for the first time this tournament, because Duke is that dang good.
Does it give you any cause to pause, Will, that the Auburn, Florida, U of H have all come out of very tough conferences where they have been battle tested time and time again, and Duke coming out of a seemingly weak conference. Now, this year, the ACC, Duke is amazing. There's no stopping Cooper Flagg. You have to be the best version of yourself. Does it give you any cause to pause at all that they have faced lesser competition during the regular season than the other 3 number 1 seeds?
Because I was going through their schedule and the teams that they played, the teams they beat the daylights out of them. Handle. They beat Baylor in the NCAA tournament by 20-something points. So, no, they're just a really good basketball team. And they do what they're supposed to do against lesser talent versus squeaking by, not being ready for this moment. So, yes, some other schools are certainly more battle tested, but Duke hasn't played down to their competition this year.
We are talking to Will Kunkel. He's the sports director. You can see him on Fox 26. Will, let's shift gears and talk a little NBA. The Rockets now sit as the number 2 seed. Who would have thought that? And they face the Lakers tonight. Can they hold that seeding position with the tough schedule they got remaining? And what is
they got
the
a big one
prognosis
tonight,
for them in the playoffs?
Yeah, they got a huge one out with the Lakers. So it's one of those situations where they're in second place, but if you have a bad week, you could drop all the way down to 5th or 6th. And the last thing they want to do is be in that play-in tournament. So they're going to have to play hard and play well and stay healthy throughout the rest of the season, because they're not a team that can really pick and choose who they want to play, because the standings are so tight that they just got to play their best basketball for as long as they can, get in the playoffs and be healthy. So it's been a blast really covering that team. It's a fun team to watch. They play basketball the right way, a lot like Kelvin's team as well, because Ime's got them playing defense, playing as a team. It's not ISO ball. It's not just one guy night in and night out. It's a handful of guys that play well together and have a great camaraderie on that team.
Well, last night, Dylan Brooks got his 7th ejection. He's a little bit Draymond Greenish for the Rockets, which can be such a benefit. Does it worry you at all if the standings are getting tight or in tight that they can't count on him because he's got kind of a hot head? He almost went after a ref last night.
No, I don't even think that he should have been ejected last night. I don't know where that ejection came from. It shouldn't have happened. It wasn't even that bad. It wasn't that aggressive. But that's one of those things with Dylan Brooks. You rather have a guy like that is so intense defensively that you got to ask him to tone it down versus a guy that you will have to, light a fire under him. That's a guy you will live with. And he's been a lot smarter since he's been in Houston. And Ime talked to him about that before he signed here last year, saying, we want you here and we want what you bring here, but you can't bring the stupidity with it. You got to be smarter. But kind of like Azeez Al-Shaair, the linebacker for the Texans, when you play like that, so intense, sometimes something bad is going to happen, and you'll live with that because it's rarely malicious and dirty. It's just over the line, and you'll pay the consequences.
Yeah, great comparison.
Sports director for Fox 26, Will Kunkel, here with us on the air. Let's shift gears again. I want to go to the Astros.
So much goodness in Houston to talk about.
We're going to make the whole round. We're going Texans next, but Astros get the series win over the Mets. What did we learn out of that series?
I think that we learned that Juan Soto isn't the next coming, but he's a really good baseball player, and I think we all took a little bit of joy in seeing him make the last out in the first game. I think we learned that some of the defense has to get a little bit better, but I also think that, I was saying this coming into the year, this lineup is not nearly as long as we're used to seeing with the Astros. They're going to live and die with their pitching, and the defense has to be a little bit better. I'd really like to see Chas McCormick get a couple more ABs, but I'm sure he'll get his when the time comes. But 3 games in, so far so good. You win a series, check the box, and move on.
And how do you feel? Does it worry you at all? I know this is early. They're going to see the Giants tonight, so we'll know a little bit more. But over the Mets series, they were 1-17 with runners in scoring position. Do you think this is just still Espada working out the lineup, figuring out the rotation, especially what's going on in the outfield and all of that? Does that worry you at all, or is this too early to be worried about that?
It's too small of a sample size to be worried about it. But like I said, it's a shorter lineup than we're used to. So if guys at the top of the lineup are getting on consistently and they have the inability to get them in at the bottom of the lineup, then that's going to be an issue all year long because they're just not as good at the bottom of the lineup. And that's why I said in one of my episodes of Kicking It is that Chas could hold a really big key in this season because he's hit 22 home runs in the big leagues before. Jake hasn't done that. So if Chas can get back to what he did 2 years ago, then he adds another bat to this lineup and just lengthens it that much more. We haven't seen it yet, but if he's given that opportunity and can capitalize on it, it would be huge for the Astros.
The Cam Smith story. It is amazing. It is truly amazing. And seeing how Joe Espada, had the locker room with his mom coming, and that was so special. What's the limit for Cam Smith, and is this the right time to bring him up?
I mean, so I don't know if it's the right time or not. We'll find out. Dana knows this more than the scouts know this more than any of us know it. But I did put this on my show as well. I asked this question, and it's a fair question. Does he have a better chance of winning Rookie of the Year, or does he have a better chance of being sent down?
Oh, wow.
It's not easy to play at the big leagues. Derek Jeter came up and got sent down. Aaron Judge got called up and sent down. Several players it's happened to. It doesn't mean your career's over. It means you're in the big leagues and you're having a tough time. You got to go figure some things out. It happened with Chas last year.
Yeah.
Cam's got a really high ceiling, and I don't foresee him being sent down. But I mean, just to crown a guy Rookie of the Year, it's a little short-sighted to say that it's just that easy to do, to come up with 19 at-bats in the Double-A, come up to the big leagues and just dominate. I hope he does. Don't get me wrong. That'd be awesome.
He sure passes the eye test, that's for sure. But there is a lot more to that, as you know. Okay, I have to ask you, Will. So torpedo bats, that's just like the word of the weekend. And, after New York the Yankees tied a historic record for 15 runs in an opening 3-game series. If this happened in Houston, would everyone have the same party line of, hey, the bats are available to everybody. This is the right length, the right diameter. They didn't do anything wrong. How big of a scandal would this be if this was happening in Houston?
Well, I'll actually take umbrage with the phrasing because it's happening right now with the Yankees. The Brewers pitcher came out and said it's the Yankees. So everyone's going to say, this is BS. It's the Yankees. So it's happening because it's the Yankees. If it happened in Minnesota, no one would say anything.
You're so right.
In Tampa, then no one would say anything. If it happened here, people would say something, obviously, because of the history here. And so the Yankees and the Astros are in that same boat. They're going to catch flack for it. My view on it is, like, good for them. I'm just shocked that they were the first one to do it and not
Same.
the Astros and not the Rays, because those two teams have led the charge on analytics and led the charge in being innovative. So I'm surprised it just wasn't them, because it's kind of their MO. As for if it's legal or not, one, it's legal.
It
So
is.
It's not debatable. Two, golf has been changing the golf clubs every 12 minutes for the last 50 years. I'm just shocked it took baseball so long to be like, hey, we could maybe do something different.
No, and it took an MIT guy to figure it out. But it's interesting. Giancarlo Stanton said, well, I think that bat actually contributed to my injuries last year. I mean, what do you think of that?
Well, yeah, and maybe like there's always a give and take with something new, and especially with the torque and the strength and power that someone like that plays with.
Sure.
Something, it could be completely different. It could be different for him than it could be for anybody else. So, I wish I had the problems Giancarlo Stanton had physically, but good for
And the
him.
paycheck.
Yeah, all the above.
We're talking to Will Kunkel, sports director for Fox 26. One last question. We have not yet talked Texans. We've touched about every base we can here on the Houston sports scene. Are the Texans done free agent shopping, or do you think they might pick up somebody else before the draft?
I don't know if they're done free agent shopping or not. I honestly haven't been too locked in with everything going on around town right now, but I will say that they did exactly what Cecil Shorts and I said on the show that they needed to do. And it was to grab as many offensive linemen as you could, throw them out there and have them fight over the starting position, because nobody earned it last year. It was all given to them, and they would not have their right mentality in that room. They were not nearly physical enough and mean enough and aggressive enough. They were soft in my mind,
Yeah.
and this year they're going to at least fight for it. And for everybody that's like, they had the worst line of the year, like, how are you going to get rid of all these guys? Well, based on your first sentence, they had one of the worst lines in the year. Why would you keep the guys that gave you one of the worst lines of the season?
And you felt good about getting rid of Tencel. I mean, I did. I was fine. Bye.
Yeah. Listen, he's an elite pass blocker, but he's not the right mindset for that room. There's been D'Amico shot down a rumor that it was toxic in that room. I haven't actually heard someone say it was toxic, because I know it's not true. That's definitely not true. It wasn't toxic. He was beloved. But I do not think he was the right leader for that room, and I think they moved on in part to change the culture in that room of what they want out of that line. And if they're going to be a run-first team, they're going to have to be a little bit dirtier, and they're going to have to, like, when CJ gets hit late, where the heck are all the linemen trying to fight the defensive guys? It happened a couple times last year,
Exactly.
and the offensive linemen were nowhere to be found.
That's called lacking the dog. Sorry.
Yeah.
Jeez.
All right. He is Will Kunkel. Will, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate the time.
Dave, Carl, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Will.
All right. When we
See
come
ya.
back, we're going to be joined by the head coach of our Houston Rough Riders, who fell this past weekend in a loss. We're going to talk to head coach CJ Johnson and ask him what he plans to do this week to get the ship on the right track. It'll be CJ Johnson up next year on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
You're listening to The Boss
and the Gloss.
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Presented by Tony's. Tony's Restaurant, the city's top fine dining experience.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's David Gow.
And Carla Dawson.
Welcome back. And I said that CJ Johnson would be joining us this segment. I was wrong. He will be joining us next segment. CJ Johnson, of course, the head coach of the Houston Rough Riders. We will visit with him next segment. But while we wait for him, I did want to ask you about the NFL Competition Committee. They're about to make a vote.
Boy.
The tush push is at risk of being outlawed by the NFL. Heavy matters at stake here as the Rules Committee will assemble and decide whether they want to keep the tush push in the game. Interestingly, of course, years ago, you were not allowed to push the quarterback from behind and give that push. Then it was legalized a few years ago. The Eagles far and away have taken better advantage of it than anybody. But as we've seen, the Packers have proposed that that play be banned from the NFL. Do you agree with the Packers or do you disagree? If you were in the room, would you ban it or would you keep it?
I would keep it.
You would keep it.
100%. Because this competition committee, I mean, there has been always talk about it, as you mentioned, the past couple of years, but there's more support to ban it this year. And you want to know why? Because the Phillies won the Super Bowl.
They won with it.
That's why. It's been a conversation. And the funny thing is that obviously Brian Gutekunst, the GM in Green Bay, is the one who really brought it up and got the ball really rolling this year. And he admitted, we can't defend it. I want it gone, basically, is what he said. That's A, weak sauce, and B, it's hypocrisy because there's no injury data, which is what they're saying, is that we're trying to prevent injury. There is no injury data here. So two things about the tush push. So Brian Gutekunst is the one that is getting the ball rolling. Sean McDermott has gotten on the train because of, quote, injuries. Now, they are the highest usage rate in the NFL for tush push is obviously the Eagles in Philadelphia. It's a situation where they have a quarterback who squats over 600 pounds. He can do this. He has never been injured in a tush push, ever. And so it works with their personnel, much like what we talked about last segment with Will Kunkel and these torpedo bats. The torpedo bats are available to everybody and they are legal. So, but guess what? You may not have the same type of hitters that New York Yankees have. And Aaron Judge doesn't use a torpedo bat. He's still Aaron Judge and he's getting home runs. So it doesn't mean just because you can do it that you are able to do it. So the other thing is that with Sean McDermott, they are the second highest usage team in the NFL with the tush push.
And Josh Allen's a pretty physical quarterback.
He's a very physical quarterback.
He may not be able to bench what Jalen Hurts can, but
Josh Allen ran it pretty effectively. He puts on a Superman cape and he is hurdling players and he's doing things he probably shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So Sean McDermott is saying, it's injuries. I'm like, dude, your quarterback is like reckless abandon. And he was the MVP of the year. He did the league this year. So he did a fantastic job. But there is no data at this point. There's no significant data that shows that short yardage plays like that without a collision impact, like the kickoff thing that they changed, that is not short yardage plays. And that's collision based. And that does have legs. This does not. So Nick Sirianni, the coach of the Eagles, hopes that Shane Steichen, head coach of Indy, Jonathan Gannon, head coach of the Cardinals, will support the tush push because they were the ones that helped create it and implement it when they were the OC in DC with the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Tomlin, he's in his 18th year as the Steelers head coach, said, why should we punish people for being innovative?
Mm-hmm.
Like kind of the same thing with the Yankees and this, they were the ones that employed this MIT professor to create this bat. So I think keep it. It's weak sauce if you want to get rid of it. And you're a hypocrite because this is the NFL. This is, gladiator sport. What are you talking about with injuries and a short yardage play with a push?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it. It challenges defenses. It really does, but figure it out.
I can't argue against any of that. It is innovative. It was effective. And then to take it away from the team that created the innovation does seem unfair. and there the Packers are
Weak.
saying, "Oh, this is an unfair play that causes injuries." My only other side of this is, assuming the tush push does come back, every NFL team should figure out how to run it. They may not have
Yes.
Jalen Hurts, but they can put a tight end in there. The tight end could take the snap. The tight end is just as strong as Jalen Hurts. And you could say, oh, but if you put a tight end in there, everyone will know what's coming. They already know what's coming. It's obvious. The Eagles don't fake it. They actually show you what they're going to do, and they
Absolutely.
run it. So it would be easy for any team to line up tight ends and do it. And I don't know why they haven't, but I'll bet this year you will see that. It would be sort of bad management of a team. If the tush push comes back and it's an unstoppable play by all accounts, why wouldn't every team line their tight end in and do it? So my only concern is it becomes the norm that whenever we get to a 3rd and 1 or a 3rd and 2 or 4th and 1, that play just rolls out of there, and it's so commonplace that it's one of those plays we have to watch over and over again. I don't find it very entertaining, but I can't, from a competitive standpoint, argue that it should be banned. I just don't want it to be the norm, and I think that's really where it should go. If it remains legal, every team ought to be running it.
And listen, it's not as easy as it looks, because we talked about Jalen Hurts being able to, you've got a quarterback who can squat 600 pounds. That's not normal.
Yep.
You also have one of the best centers in the league. I mean, so you have the personnel to be able to do that. It's kind of like when the Warriors went to small ball, because that's the personnel they had.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a big guy or big guys that were worth anything. So they went to small ball, and the Lakers said, I don't need to do that. And the Cavs said, I don't need to do that. And guess what the Warriors did? Went on and got 4 championships. So you've got to, if you can't beat them, you better join them and figure out how to make it work within your own system.
Well, but that carries the analogy forward. The Warriors transformed the game.
Yep.
Steph Curry transformed the game.
And it's not boring.
And the game is no longer the same. It is filled with 3-pointers. And look, when the Celtics won the championship last year, it was all about shooting 3-pointers. The whole league adopted and wants to shoot 3-pointers like Steph Curry. Unfortunately, there's only one Steph Curry. But in this case, I don't find it as exhilarating to watch a tush push as I do watching Steph Curry hit balls from nearly half court. I find that wildly entertaining. If the league goes to tush push, I think it's a downgrade in entertainment value.
Well, I think it has been to tush push for years, and we're not seeing it on every short play because it is incredibly nuanced to be able to run it successfully.
It's not really league wide. It's really 2 teams.
Because they're the only ones able to do it. They're the only ones. It's not being employed everywhere. So basically what the other 30 teams or 31 teams are saying is, dang it, we want to do it. We can't do it. So let's ban it. Because really the Bills are the next, 26 times they've tried it compared to 38 with Philly the last season. It didn't work as well as it did for Philly. That's why they want to go.
And goodness, it came down to the finals there. The Bills had a real struggle there. They almost
remember
got
that tush push, which one referee said Josh Allen got it, got the down. The other one said no.
Yep.
That was tricky.
So your Raiders, the Texans, they should all be doing the tush push next year then, shouldn't they?
If they've got the personnel, why
if it's
not?
Legal, they should.
I think so. Why not?
That's
At least try it.
That's what I'm afraid of, but we'll see. All right, when we come back, we're going to get to visit with C.J. Johnson. He is the head coach of the Houston Rough Riders in the UFL. We will visit with C.J. Johnson up next. We're going to ask him what adjustments they'll make for their matchup next week. It is C.J. Johnson up next year on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
This is The Boss
and the Gloss.
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Presented by Tony's. Tony's Restaurant, the city's top fine dining experience.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's David Gow.
And Carla Dawson.
Welcome back, and we are joined now by CJ Johnson, head coach of our Houston Rough Riders. CJ, welcome to the show. You're on with David and Carla.
How you doing, David and Carla? How's your night going?
We are doing great, and delighted to have you. We acknowledge it was a first week. Last week did not go as you had hoped. What do you hope to do to right the ship here coming up in your matchup this week?
You know, offensively, I think we got to simplify for these new quarterbacks. I think both of them played well in spots. You know, you can't turn the ball over. There's a few misreads. It may have been too much. Sometimes coming out of camp as coaches, we think we could do more than we can. I think we just got to shore up that offensive lineup just a tad bit more and get the ball to our playmakers. We had some opportunities, but we just didn't get it done, you know, to the playmakers. Defensively, I think we could tackle better. You know, just get them on the ground, get out of third and long situations. Let's play smart, know where the sticks are. Just a little bit of an education of the game. And I think we'll be fine. We'll be definitely in a hunt for this one.
Yeah, it's early. And we noted you got Nolan Henderson, and he has the ability to run the ball. How do you think that will affect your game plan this week?
Well, there's always runs for Nolan because Nolan is fast. He's not only fast, he's quick, and he does have a pocket presence about him that he can really, really has a sense of what holes to go in when he does have the ball in his hand. So there'll be some definite plans for him to do some things active with his feet.
CJ, you gain most of your rushing yards on the quarterback scrambles. Do you think that can become more of a focus and scripted play that you'll call in the future?
Absolutely. We're going to have quarterback runs in Nolan's package. Whenever he's in the game, we're anticipating him to run, and we'll block it like that. We have some definite things that we want him to do, and it definitely has to do with his feet.
Well, that's exciting. I like that kind of football.
Well, you make them. You're a smart lady because you make teams play with 11. If you can do that, and they got to defend against 11, then it's a whole nother ball game.
We are talking to CJ Johnson, head coach of the Houston Roughnecks here in Houston, Texas. Okay, tell us about your matchup this week. What are you envisioning they bring to the table?
Very, very dynamic offense. The quarterback's outstanding. They can rush the football. You know, I did a statistical analysis. The teams that ran the ball this week, they're the teams that won. So this team really can run the football. Defensively, they play with a lot of different packages. We just got to be smart, simplify. But man, they're a good, tough bunch. They're a physical team. 2 years ago, they won the whole thing in the XFL. And this team they brought almost everyone back for the last 2 years. So this team will be well-oiled.
CJ, you sound someone that's had like 40 years of coaching experience. I'm just saying.
Well, he's too young for
43 to be exact.
43? You started when you were 2. Unbelievable.
Oh, you're so kind to compliment me.
Talk about cornerback Damon Arnett. He got the team's first sack. He's our Ohio State product. Is that right?
First round pick.
Yep, with the Raiders.
Absolutely. Fast, twitchy, loves the game of football. He's a young man that could play. He can play inside and outside. I love him, his man-to-man coverage skills. He had a couple pass breakups this weekend, and he's a blanket cover guy. You know, great attitude with the younger guys. He's experienced it. He's been around a little bit. So I love what Arnett brings to the table on and off the field.
We're talking to CJ Johnson, head coach of the Houston Roughnecks. Okay, I want to ask you about you and Tom Cable. We've had Tom on the air with us. We really enjoyed it. Interviewed you two on the sideline, had some animated discussions. You see that on the sidelines a lot with coaches. Tell us about your relationship with him. I know you've both coached a long time. Are you two good? Is that part of the passion of football?
First of all, Tom and I played together at the University of Idaho. We went on to San Diego State. We were roommates at San Diego State, road roommates. so we have a great relationship, kept in touch throughout the years. This relationship goes really way beyond football. He's one of my best friends, and it's just a beautiful relationship. It's a great opportunity to have him on the staff, and man, he brings a wealth of knowledge and just he's great for everything. He's great for this league.
So this weekend, CJ, the Roughneck quarterbacks connected with 6 different receivers in the game. Is that just an embarrassment of riches at your receiver position? What did you see this weekend?
Well, I thought we had to throw it, and we'd like to throw it. We like to throw it when we want to. There was a whole litany of runs that we had that we really want to control the clock, help the defense. We wanted to do all those things, and the problem was we were forced to throw it. We want to throw it when we want to. So one thing we got to do is, I think we got to do some little bit quicker passing game stuff, but also we got to be able to run the football. I think that's where it starts, and we can't go down 18-0, with 2 interceptions early on in this game.
Yeah.
So if we can do that, we can have a balanced attack. I think we'll have more passes completed, and along with our first-time starters at quarterback, I think we'll do much better this week.
And you're going to face the Arlington Renegades for the Battle of Texas on the roads. How are you preparing this week for that game?
The one thing we did, we had bonus day. We had a bonus practice day today. I thought we practiced really, really well. Our team we work hard sometimes, but we don't work quite as smart as we need to be. I think special teams is going to be one of the keys this week. So we really put a long period in for special teams. We got a couple tricks up our sleeves, and hopefully I have an opportunity to call them. I just don't want to waste them. If like last week I had a couple, but I just didn't want to waste them in a game like that.
Yeah, no need to show your hand yet. It's early.
Yeah.
All right, he is CJ Johnson. CJ, really appreciate your joining us and wish you the best of luck. Bring home a W this week.
Go get him, Roughnecks.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you, CJ. Good luck to you.
Yeah, they had a tough week 1, but I do feel like he and Cable have great NFL experience.
Oh, my goodness.
Great backgrounds in coaching. We've got great coaching on that staff. You can't read too much into 1 week.
I agree, because you look at CJ Johnson. I said 40 years of coaching experience. He said 43 to be exact. 4 as the head coach at Tulane, and then 33 seasons in all as assistant coach in the NFL, college, and high school. And he's gotten Super Bowls. I mean, everything. He's done it all. So, don't show it yet. Kind of feel out and then just go get him. That's what I say.
All right, we're going to take a break right here. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by Kate McLean. She is, of course, the master chef at Tony's restaurant.
This is when I get hungry.
Yeah, we always get hungry talking to her. Also, we're going to finally tell everybody where Aaron Rodgers will play next year because everyone's been wondering.
Because you just got back from your darkness retreat.
So we'll fill everyone in on that when we return here on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
This is The Boss
And the Gloss.
on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Presented by Tony's. Tony's Restaurant, the city's top fine dining experience.
From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's David Gow.
And Carla Dawson.
Welcome back, and we are delighted to be joined by Kate McLean, executive chef at Tony's. Kate, welcome to the show. You're on with David and Carla.
Thanks, David. What's up, guys? Have y'all seen the new show Girl Boss on Netflix?
No, but I love the name of it. Do tell.
It's Kate Hudson, and she takes over her family's basketball team, and it's like
Running Point.
episode.
Yeah,
It's
Running
so
Point
good.
is what it is. I just watched the whole thing.
Oh, Running Point. It's called Running Point. Yes.
Wait a minute.
No, I
She
Behind-
is the girl boss. David, this is a must see.
Well, as usual, I'm behind you. It's just one of these women empowerment things that I'm going to have to surrender and make you the boss, Carla. Is that the point?
Well, Kate,
You're gonna love.
you're going to break it to
surrendering.
him.
You finished it. Nice.
Well, we know who the boss is at Tony's.
Yeah, we do.
How is it going at Tony's
Yes.
Fine Dining?
So good. We're really excited. We're turning 60 tomorrow.
Congratulations. We were just talking, this is your 60th anniversary of Tony's Restaurant in a business that has no
I
longevity.
mean, that's
Restaurants don't last more than 5 years.
iconic.
You've been around 60 years.
Not Kate, the restaurant.
Well,
Kate's our youngster.
Kate's still young. So
Nope.
tell us, how did Tony's set itself apart? How is it the survivor? How is it a standout after 60 years?
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, we're on and off the court. I've been with this brand for 15 years.
Yeah.
And, at Tony Vallone's side, and what I really adopted and just kind of vibed with him was our ability to create these fun kind of moments for our guests that make them feel special. So I am continuing in his honor as, head designer of that whole orchestration. And, we're always going to bring in the best product. We're going to treat them great. And we're going to give you delicious food. We'll make sure it's delicious, give you the best service. But I'm so excited because as we celebrate the 60th year, we're going to celebrate all year long. We have a lot of fun things that we're going to do to just kind of, change it up and keep you entertained.
Well, I'm going to be there Tuesday on April 1st. Actually, tomorrow is the day because,
I'm sorry. I did not get an invite.
oh dear. Well,
Yeah, we got some talking after we let Kate do her thing.
yeah, I'm in trouble here, Kate. She wants in on the deal, but I'm coming by for the happy hour. Always love the happy hours there. You've got some really great specials there. That's always fun. And then celebrating 60 years is a huge milestone. Congratulations to everyone, to you and the whole staff there. So what kind of things can you do to celebrate 60 years? I've never had a 60-year anniversary of anything yet. Maybe someday.
Yeah, I've been telling the staff, whether you worked with us for 10 days or whether you worked with us we have a gentleman that is the old guard, 42 years. And
Wow.
whether it's 10 days or 42 years, you have really impacted and given yourself to these clients. And I got to hand it to them because you can't do it without the person to your right and your left. And I'm so thrilled that the team that we've really built in the last 3 years that just surround this awesome operation. But yeah, we're going to do a throwback fun food menu. We've got that planned. We've got live music on the weekends and during the week as well. We're gonna light it up for Mom's Day. Excited for that. June, we're doing this thing called Adult Daycare, and it's a half off any bottle of wine on the list. And we're also going to give you free snack mix.
Wow.
We've got 2 kind of theme weekends planned. We've got a Roaring 20s theme night coming in June. And then in July, we're going to do a Mykonos whiteout. So we're all white
Ooh,
and get ready to party.
I like the sound of that. That's going to work. So Kate, how do we make reservations? What do we do? Do we call? Do we do it online? How do we get there?
Great question. Thank you. So you could just hop on Open Table. Sometimes if that looks jammed up, just call us.
Okay.
And I love it when people call, and then we can just make sure that we can get you in.
Well,
You can drop in. You can just come.
Yeah, I was there a couple weeks ago and
Once
intentionally.
again, didn't know
Oh yeah,
we could have gone.
somehow I was there without Carla. This is a real sore
He's
spot
down
here.
2 now. 3 strikes, you're out. That's all I'm saying.
I'm in a
boss.
little trouble, Kate. Once we
Yeah.
lose you, you may just need to stick around because Carla's going to turn on me here very fast. But we ordered the Flaming Branzino, and it was unbelievable because when that happens, of course, the kitchen goes dark. It all lights up. Kate stands up and does a shimmy dance. There's a swirling fire in the air. It's fantastic. And of course, the fish is amazing. So I would encourage anyone to go just for that dish itself. It is out of this world. So delicious
Thanks.
and such a fun
It's
experience.
so much fun to do. And it's really tasty. You know, it's a fish cooked within salt, so it's seasoned but protected by its skin. And you know, I just love throwing fire, having fire thrown at me, whether we catch it or not. It's cool. And I hope the fire department isn't listening right now.
Right.
I don't. I think they're Boston Gloss fans, so I might get a visit, but that's okay. I'll handle that later.
Okay.
Hey, you can handle anything.
Yes, you can. We have faith in you, Kate.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for calling in and filling us in on all things Tony's. Congrats on 60 years. Tony's Fine Dining. It's over there in Greenway Plaza. It's the best. We really, really love it. And we'll be over there soon to see you.
Awesome. Can't wait. Thank you.
All right. Talk
Bye,
soon.
guys. Okay. Bye.
Always great to hear from Kate. And in fact, the pasta there that I had was just out of this world. It's just a special place with special people.
Well,
Kate,
and you bring up the good point. It's like how many restaurants have stayed through all of this, through the ups and downs of Houston, COVID, everything. 60 years.
no, that's an amazing run. It's an iconic run.
And it speaks to Tony Vallone, who started it, and Kate, who's able to continue that legend.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
All right. We promised that we were going to tell the world where Aaron Rodgers is going to play football next year because nobody seems to be able to figure that one out, or at least he can't. And the Steelers are left hanging. Isn't this just a fait accompli? Isn't it obvious that eventually we know inevitably Aaron Rodgers will play for the Steelers? It just makes too much sense right now. Does it not? Or am I missing something?
I don't think you're missing anything because we're hearing Mike Tomlin from the meetings, for the NFL meetings, saying, I think we're fine with Mason Rudolph. No one smiles and says that has any, unless they've been drinking. So I think they've got Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson on their depth chart. But to me, and he's saying, we don't mind waiting for Aaron. We're patient. This weekend, Aaron Rodgers called up DK Metcalf and they were playing catch at UCLA. That is not a private university. It's not a private workout. He needs us talking about him. And voila, here we are. We're talking about him. And DK Metcalf was the Seattle receiver, for those of you that need a refresher, who just signed a big fat deal with Pittsburgh. So, I mean, he's making it look like that's where he's going. But I'll tell you why I think he's holding out.
Well, this is the mystery. I was about to ask you because all the signs suggest it's the only place he can go and walk in and be an assured starter, it would seem. And yet he hasn't signed. Why?
Number one, he loves being in the headlines. And if he signs now, it's done. Then we don't need to talk about it.
Yeah, there's no more off-season saga or drama or
Correct.
darkness retreats or any of that nature.
Right.
Okay.
So that's the number one reason.
Okay.
Because he loves to be in the headlines, needs to be talked about. But number two, here's what I think. I think he's really hoping for an off chance that negotiations with San Francisco and Brock Purdy maybe break down. Maybe it's not exactly what Brock Purdy wanted and someone else is willing to pay him. He would much rather go to San Francisco than Pittsburgh. And I also think he is holding out for Minnesota changing its mind that, maybe we should bring in Aaron Rodgers because we don't know how JJ's going to come back from his ACL and he hasn't had any NFL experience. So this would be a veteran for him to learn under, although Aaron doesn't help younger people. We know that. So I think he is actually kind of holding out for a San Francisco breakdown, possibly, or Minnesota changing their mind.
It strikes me, Minnesota has already made up its mind. They've had a chance to see J.J. McCarthy all off season, and they haven't signed Aaron Rodgers. I think they've made their bet on J.J. McCarthy. That strikes me as done. I guess the 49er rumors will exist until Brock
Sure.
Purdy signed a deal.
And do I think Brock Purdy's not going to sign it? No, I think it's
Right.
going to work out. But
It will probably work out. But until that happens, yeah, that possibility is there. Brock Purdy being traded to the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers signing with the 49ers, crazier things have happened, and that's the gossip. That's the rumor that's out there. Although in this modern day of media, all it takes is one person to say it, and then it ends up being a headline with clickbait. Rodgers to the 49ers.
Which is what he loves. That was my number one point.
That's what.
But I think what all this talk does say is that, because remember when he was released by the Jets, it was, I need to think if I'm going to retire. Well, this is pretty much you're not retiring. You're throwing balls with DK Metcalf, and you're keeping the Steelers in waiting. You're not retiring. So just
I tell you what,
that one to the curb.
There's probably no better salesman for Aaron Rodgers to sign with the Steelers than DK Metcalf. He is a stud. I would love to throw a football to him. And I'm sure when Aaron Rodgers is throwing it to him and watching the way DK adjusts to the ball in the air, the cuts he does, the way he reels the ball in, I think he's going to be an electric receiver for the Steelers if he gets the right quarterback. Aaron Rodgers needs to play up to DK's level, not the other way around.
Absolutely.
I mean, at this point, DK's at the height of his powers.
Yes, he's ascending, and Aaron Rodgers is on the sunset of his career.
So we shall see how that will play out. Well, it's been great to have you back here.
Thank
from
you.
your travels
Great
in
to be
California
back.
and all the things that you do out there in La La Land and Northern California and all that fun. Really appreciate it. And well, it's been a great show. We've had a chance to visit with Will Kunkel and CJ Johnson. What a great group we've had on air. And thanks to our friends behind the glass.
And we're 1 week closer to the NFL draft.
And we are 1 week closer with the NFL draft looming. And thanks to Kate McLean for joining us from Tony's. We will be back next week. And you've been listening to The Boss and the Gloss on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.